At large, John Harwood, and PBS NewsHour's newest edition, White House correspondent Yamiche, Alcindor, also an MSNBC contributor. I'm going to go first on the economy, because the president loves to say over and over, the economy is better than it has been in decades. Here's why this is a flawed argument. 1 year ago, the president trashed Barack Obama right, left, and center. And while we did face a financial crisis 9 years ago, we've been on a steady climb since then. Now, President Trump and his policies have been good for business, but how can he possibly make the argument and have the nation buy it that now the economy is better than it's been in decades? That wasn't what he said a year ago.
Well, the president we've seen will say pretty much anything. Okay, the economy is better than it was a year ago, and the question is, how long does it stay better? The tax cut is likely to give us a boost this year. We're already at a very mature, lengthy recovery. We're near full employment. We will get stimulus from the tax cut, $200 billion, but that will also increase the deficit, could raise interest rates, increase inflation, and that could set the stage for a recession later on.
Jose, let's talk about the Dreamers. This is central to the president's message at this point. He has been, at various times, advocates for Dreamers and their biggest nightmare. Democrats are inviting a number of Dreamers to be their guests at the speech. What can he say or should he say to try and move this forward and not further confuse his position as it relates to these undocumented immigrants who are forced to come to the United States?
Yeah, Ali, I think over the past week or so, we have been seeing a tightening of what the president really wants on immigration. And we remember that meeting that was televised, and then the fiasco when Durbin and Graham went to see him. It's very clear that the president wants those 4 points, right? He wants, yes, the legalization of the Dreamers, but also $25 billion guaranteed for the wall, an end to family unification, as it's been known since 1965 here, and the end to visa lottery visas. So how do you find common ground when you're asking for $25 billion guaranteed, something the Democrats say they're not willing to give them, and at the same time, we're talking about that every single day, 120 Dreamers lose their DACA. And by the 5th of March, just over a month from now, DACA ceases to exist. So are we going to have 800,000 people who have come up from out of the shadows, registered, let people know who they are and where they are? Are we going to just say, you guys are done, even though you've been here all your lives, brought here through no fault of your own? We're going to get you out of here to a country you don't know. And so how do you find common ground when time is just running out?
Ali, Velshi, I ask you, we've got DACA recipients who are losing work permits every day. And some people will say, listen, the $25 billion for the wall and border security, it's not really a wall, it's a metaphor. It absolutely is a wall. The president himself, and in campaign literature, said it's not a fence, it's a wall. How could Team Trump possibly ask the country, ask Dreamers, trust us here, when we're living in a time of absolutely no trust? 2 weeks ago, he shook Chuck Schumer's hand and said, we've got a deal, until Stephen Miller walked his little feet in there. Right,
and this continues to be a tough one because so many Americans believe in doing something for the Dreamers. I want to bring Bill Bratton into this, former NYPD commissioner, because, Commissioner, Donald Trump ties this to safety, right? He continues to talk about immigrants as being a danger to Americans, undocumented immigrants being a danger. But in fact, when it comes to America's safety and the things that the president needs to be talking to the nation about, immigration's not really part of that topic.
Well, the wall is intended, what would pass for a wall is intended to do a number of things. One, try to significantly impede the flow of illegal narcotics into the country, as well as other goods. Immigration, ironically, has been going down dramatically in terms of illegal immigration. I think last year was around 300,000 apprehensions, down from a peak of 1.3. So the issue that it's intended to prioritize, stopping the flow of humans, that's been going down dramatically for a variety of reasons. It might be beneficial, or more beneficial, actually stopping the flow of a lot of the drugs coming into the country.
Yamiche, let's talk one of the other pillars, trade. President Trump and his own administration aren't even on the same page. They pull out of TPP. He calls NAFTA a disaster. You've got Wilbur Ross saying we've been giving it away since 1945. And then the Gary Cohn side of the House is saying NAFTA, maybe there's parts of it that have to get improved. And even President Trump, and in the speech penned by Gary Cohn on Friday, kind of throws TPP out there. He had said, we're going to leave it, but we're going to negotiate better terms. Nothing's happened. And TPP and trade have marched on without us.
And trade is one of the large pillars that really President Trump can thank for his large win. Across the Midwest, while people were talking about jobs and other things, the name recognition of NAFTA in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, was overwhelming. There's this idea that people really expect him to renegotiate America's position in the world, and that's going to actually impact their daily lives. People think that their jobs in steel mills and other things that have in a large way been automated are coming back because China's been the person to blame on that. And one of the biggest things that are going on right now is a war of words with the European Union of all places. The president has hinted that he was going to retaliate for unfair tactics, and the EU said try it. So we're in a position where the president, apart from being not on the same page as his own cabinet, you also have him arguing with our allies over trade.
Okay, but then how about his own economic advisor, Gary Cohn, in CNN today, talks about this administration and how they're embracing innovation. You can't possibly be the administration that embraces innovation and embraces jobs of the past, because that's exactly what President Trump does.
Look, here's the fundamental reality about the argument that trade deals are the reason that we have problems for blue-collar workers in the Midwest. It's not true. It is true that the globalization of the economy, the mobility of global capital is something that has weighed on blue-collar workers. But that is an unstoppable force. There is not going to be a renegotiation that reverses those things. As Yamiche just indicated, a lot of this is also technology, which is reducing the amount of workers required in manufacturing, even if manufacturing comes back, and it is coming back in the United States. Right. Nobody should hold their breath thinking that there is going to be a dramatic improvement in their lives because of a new NAFTA. Nobody should think that of a rejoining of TPP, which is not going to happen because, as you mentioned, the other countries in TPP without us have gone ahead.
Yeah, and this is a speech that Justin Trudeau made last week at Davos. Jose, we did see what can happen if somebody doesn't write a speech full of things that are going to get the president tripped up like they did in Davos. He didn't really step on himself. It wasn't a great speech, but it certainly didn't do any damage. What does success look like to you for the President's State of the Union tomorrow night?
Oh, boy, that's a great question. I'll be there with you all tomorrow in D.C. I think that success is outlining principles that could possibly be something that both parties could agree on. Infrastructure is one. And I just want to bring this up. The wall, TPP, NAFTA, this is not something that has come into President Trump's mind since the 20th of January. He campaigned on these issues. The fact that we are in a time right now when dreamers are looking at the possibility of being deported to a country they don't know. 5th of March, when he's been very clear that that's something he wanted to see end during the campaign. I think that it's important that tomorrow and in the remainder of the weeks that we have, we try to see if something can be achieved, because these are human beings.
But it's also stunning. Politico had with regard to the President's State of the Union tomorrow night. They said he just needs to be normal. But what is normal? If any other head of state gave a speech in Davos and you were there and they didn't take the opportunity to address artificial intelligence, income inequality, technology, the refugee crisis, we would be slaying them. But because we're living in the world of Trump, we're saying, well, you didn't trip.
Not only that, I mean, the idea, the Me Too movement and everything going on as it relates to the treatment of women was a massive theme throughout there. Again, not something that the president focused on. Commissioner Bratton, I want to ask you about some things we're hearing that the Trump's national security team is considering nationalizing a super fast 5G network in order to counter China's threat to us through cybersecurity. Do you know anything about this?
Only what I've heard recently, the last several days about that, the idea of trying to increase the security of the national intelligence networks. What I was intrigued about was the idea, however, that they would in fact then share that 5G with the various U.S. firms, with the significant exception of China. So I don't have much in the way of details on that. I'm intrigued by it, and we'll be looking.